Are you ready to make 2022 a year of authentic sales success? Welcome to the 2022 Authentic Selling Challenge, brought to you by the Selling from the Heart Insiders Group. Each day, you will be inspired, equipped, and challenged to take action to unlock higher levels of success and fulfillment in your sales career. You're about to be coached by some of the sales world's foremost thought leaders and influencers. This is going to be practical and fun, so grab a pen and a notepad and get ready to take action as we join our challenge hosts, Larry Levine and Daryl Amy.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 2022 Authentic Selling Challenge. Larry, what's going on?
I'm super excited for day 2, but yesterday, wow, Jeffrey and Jennifer Gittimer sure did kick it off in a very direct and authentic way yesterday, Daryl. Let me tell you that one.
The message was so powerful, and we're so glad you're here. Gary, you're absolutely right. This is going to be a great session today. It's Tremendous Tuesday, Alan. I think you are so spot on. And I've got William here, and Seattle's in the house. Jackie's here. It's going to be a fantastic day today on the Selling from the Heart challenge with Heather Monahan. I can't wait for you to meet Heather. If you've not met her before, the confidence creator herself, you're in for a challenging and inspirational treat. Let's just put it that way, Larry. It's going to be a good day today. Hello, Bruce. It's great to see you. And it's cool seeing people all over the world chiming in. Look at this, even Massachusetts. All right. So everybody's here. We got Bill here from New York, and it's so fun seeing everybody chime in. And what I really love about this event and what I love about the community around Selling from the Heart is it is becoming an epicenter, a movement even of authenticity inside the sales profession, a profession that desperately needs it. But authentic selling professionals and leaders are coming out of the woodwork, and it's so fun to just be a part of this, Larry.
We always say it's a lifestyle. It's not a light switch, Daryl. And it's just so thrilling just to see everyone just wave the flag and say, you know what? I am who I am. And authenticity must be placed up on the forefront this year. It has to be.
Absolutely. And a huge shout out today. Authentic sales professionals invest in themselves. And one of the best ways you can invest in yourself is to attend what I think is the most power-packed conference every year. It's Outbound, and Outbound 22 is coming up this fall, Larry. And I'm so excited about this event.
Yeah, I always say it's where sales professionals come to unite to get better. It's going to be this coming, it's later this year. It's September. There'll be more details coming out, but I know you got a little quick snippet.
We got a word from our friends at Outbound as we get started today. Check it out.
The buyer's emotional experience as they walk through the sales and buying journey with you is a more consistent predictor of outcome of any other variable.
What are their thoughts, their dreams, their hopes, their concerns, the political landscape? You are selling to humans.
What would it be like if I opened up my heart to my clients, to my prospects? What would it be like if I brought the real version of myself to my clients and magic started to happen?
Instead of looking at how to sell, I said, how do people buy, right? On the other side of the equation.
The only value that you have for a client is your advice and your recommendation. It's not the product. It's not the solution. It's the decision that they make to get the outcomes that they need.
Sales is not a job. Sales is not a profession. It's helping others see and achieve what they didn't think was possible.
All right. That's going to be so exciting. Can't wait. Outboundconference.com. And I already see some people in the comments have already got their early bird VIP ticket. Gary, way to go. Go to outboundconference.com. Take advantage of that. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's one of my favorite events we get to attend every year. And Jackie, you're right. We met at Outbound. So it's really, really cool to see all that coming together. Today, we are going to be continuing our journey about authenticity. Hey, we got John Jenkins all the way from
Hey,
Arkansas.
John Jenkins.
Good morning, John. What's going on? Nice. This is such a great crowd here today. You know, authenticity is such a critical part of sales. Sales is the transfer of belief, is one definition of it. And there's no way to transfer belief without authenticity. And one of the things I think that holds us back, Larry, is the stories we tell ourselves inside. And I want to throw this quote right up here on the screen. Because I think this epitomizes, the internal work that we've got to do if we want to bring our authentic selves to our prospects and clients.
Yeah, I'm just a big believer because I work through it. I work through it all the time. Is the stories that we tell ourselves are the stories that we actually act out in the marketplace, that we act out with our clients. And Daryl, I love this quote from Heather. It's about make the decision today to stop telling yourself the story that's holding you back. It just isn't true. And that's why I'm a big believer. The stories in our head always play out. We just got to knock off the stories in our head.
Well, and that's why the internal work is so important, because when we're holding on to things that aren't true, those things actually hold us back. They keep us from bringing our authentic self to the marketplace. And as we've been talking about it, the buyers can smell insincerity and fake and inauthentic really, really quickly, even over Zoom. They can smell it. And so this is so, so critical. And when we think, as we're getting ready to bring Heather into the studios here, as we think about all this, we've been working together on this model since last year and saying that personal transformation drives public success. And if you look at the personal side of this equation, the heart, the mind, the body, what's going on in your heart? What type of heart work are you doing? Heart work is hard work. It's very valuable, but also your mind, like what types of beliefs are we holding on to? And I think today, as we get ready to hear from Heather, one of the things that's so critical is looking at the beliefs that we hold, especially the ones that aren't true, and replacing them with things that are.
I just think it's mission critical today moving forward. We have to get the alignment between head and heart aligned so well. So, and I think this goes to, yesterday we talked about confidence and belief. Heather's going to even expand upon it more. This is what we have to wrap our heads around, especially when it comes to authenticity in a world today that's just full of masks and facades, Daryl.
Well, and what a great segue, and what a great time to bring our friend, the author of The Confidence Creator and the new book, Overcome Your Villains. None other, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Heather Monahan. Whoa!
Heather, what's going on? It's the
Hi,
fan
guys.
club. Hey, what's going on?
Thanks for having me.
We're
this
so
is
glad
gonna
you're
be a
here today.
blast.
Congratulations on the new book. I've already started reading it. It is fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a long labor of love. That was about 2 years of work. It was crazy.
Well, we can certainly tell. Heather, you're a true selling from the heart champion, and I know everybody is really looking forward to hearing your story today and the lessons that you've learned along the way. And so I think the best thing to do, without further ado, is, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2022 Authentic Selling stage, Heather Monahan.
Thanks, guys. And hello to everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so glad everybody's here. And I know we are going to get to Q&A in a few minutes, but wanted to share a little bit of insights with you first. If you don't know me, I'm Heather Monahan. My background is in sales and sales leadership in corporate America. I was in the radio business for over 20 years and started out as an account executive. I'm sure many of you out there did the same, and worked my way up to chief revenue officer. And during my tenure at the company that I was a chief revenue officer, I had been there for 14 years, had more than doubled the company's revenues, and I had just been named one of the most influential women in radio in Q4 of 2017, when the CEO I had worked for 14 years became ill, and he elevated his daughter to replace him, and she fired me immediately. And I'll tell you, as a seasoned professional and someone who had enjoyed a lot of success in my leadership position, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. And it turned into this really pivotal moment in my life. And maybe some of you guys can relate to this, where some of those really low moments in your life got you to see things a lot differently. And that's really what happened for me. You know, prior to getting fired as a chief revenue officer, one of my biggest challenges that I'm sure you guys share is finding great talent, right? And I remember a year before I got fired, I had decided to launch a personal brand on social media with my website, really sharing my personal story so that people could start to get to know me without having met me, you know, one-on-one in a marketplace. And my reasoning around that was I needed to flip the script on recruitment. Instead of targeting one individual and chasing them down, I thought, what if I reverse the current and I pull people towards me so they get to know me? And if they see that I'm someone that they think they could learn from or would like to work with, then they'll be attracted towards me. They'll get in my pipeline and my funnel, and I'll bring them in for interviews. I thought that would really speed up the process on finding great talent. And I was definitely right. So if you aren't on social media yet, guys, if you don't have a personal brand on LinkedIn, yes, 10 years ago was the time to do it. Today is the only time. Take action now. Now, here's what I want to talk about around authenticity with this point is that back then, a year before I was fired, I had a villain in my life. There you go, Overcome Your Villains, the book about how to get around them. But back then, I was not paying attention to the villain that I was working side by side with every day. There's an impact to working around people who don't like you, who look down on you, or working in a toxic environment. And while we can definitely ignore it and try not to acknowledge it, it will affect you eventually. For me, it affected me in ways such that I did not show up as that authentic, powerful version of myself. I shrank myself. I wore my hair differently. I started wearing glasses that weren't even real, right? I was trying to fit this mold of what I thought this other person who didn't like me, who didn't want me there, wanted me to be. I was showing up as an inauthentic version of myself. Now, when I went to Marketplace and launched this initiative, I showed up a little bit like me, but not the way that I do today because I was so afraid of being judged. I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that, right? We've been judged before. So I put this initiative out there, and yes, I started attracting talent, and I maybe had 2,000 or 3,000 followers at that point in time. But the reason why I want to share this with you is once I got fired, I flipped the script on authenticity, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do something really crazy that I haven't been doing. I'm going to be me. And I put a post up on LinkedIn that said, I have just been fired. And if there's ever anything I've done to help you, I need to hear from you now. And that post went viral, my friends. And here's why. Because people don't talk about getting fired. People aren't open and honest about painful moments, especially not then 4 years ago when it happened. So it was something unique and different. And it let me own a white space and own a conversation others weren't talking about. So the more you can lean into those quirky things about you, those unique and different things about you, the more you're going to own a space that is not competitive. Right? So business, you want to own a white space. You don't want to be right next to everybody else that looks exactly like you, that talks just like you, and then you're fighting a price fight. There's no value and no success in that. It's all about finding and discovering what's unique and different and special about you and why you can command whatever rates or pricing or results that you're going to bring to market. So I just wanted to give you that idea, and just another little data point to back this up. I had a couple thousand followers at that time when I was showing up as an inauthentic, pretend perfect sales leader. And here we are 4 years later, and I show up as a very messy version of myself every single day. And I own that. I rock that. And now I have over 220,000 people in my community on LinkedIn, highly engaged. I get millions of post views a month. And that was not the case 4 years ago. So this data point, and number one, data does not lie, right? Always look to data to help inform your decisions. Here's something that I've learned. The more inauthentic we show up, the less reach we're going to have, the less we're going to resonate with people, the more we're going to attract the wrong people. Because if I'm showing up as a perfect, flawless version of myself every day, I'm going to attract people who like perfection. I am not a perfect person. None of us are, right? I'm highly imperfect. And the more I flaunt those flaws, the more I lean into that unique, very different approach, the more people who are unique, special, and different in their own right show up and share their stories with me and trust me, right? And trust is really the epicenter of sales. As we gain others' trust, we get them to empty their glass to us and we can learn what their pain points are. The best way I know to establish trust with anybody is to first and foremost show up as that real version of me and of you. When you show up as that real version of you, people see it. They'll believe in you. You'll establish strong connections. And when you don't, those are not your people. And that is okay. I remember my first sales job, my mentor at the time, who was an owner of one of the first radio stations I worked for, he used to say to me, Heather, when you go into these clients and if there isn't a connection, there's millions of other clients out there. You can move on. You don't have to change who you are. You need to find ways to attract that business and those opportunities and partnerships to you that make sense for you. So if you're in a room of people right now and they are not your people, they are not cheering you on and champions for you when you showed up as that flawed version of you, step up and leave that table. Because when you do that, that's an act of creating confidence. And I've learned that in any moment, we are either creating confidence within ourselves or chipping away at it. I had an amazing opportunity a couple of years ago to interview Sarah Blakely, then CEO of Spanx and founder of Spanx, live at a marketing and sales conference in Boston. And one of the questions I asked her was around that importance of authenticity, being different. And she had this really brilliant response that I want all of you sales leaders to really think about. She explained that every Friday they hold an oops meeting at Spanx. An oops meeting, I had never heard about that, right? I came from a culture where don't surprise me. I don't like surprises. Deliver on the numbers, hit the targets. Everything had to be flawless. And what she shared was there's no such thing as flawless at Spanx. We're full of flaws. And she took it back to how she was raised. And she shared that growing up, her father used to say every night at dinner, tell me how you failed today. And I said, well, why would he say that? I didn't grow up like that. I'd never heard anyone who had. And she said, he was teaching us to always push beyond our boundaries, always try new things and not look down on failure. Instead, celebrate it as part of that process and growth. She said, so I took my father's teachings to Spanx. And every Friday, she would lead the meeting, sharing as a true, authentic leader how she failed that week, the mistakes she made that week, how she dropped that ball. And as she would do that, she would pass the baton to the person next to her and they would share how they failed and pass that baton to the next one. And she created a culture where people celebrated flaws and failure, not just in theory, but truly leading first by sharing her own. I had a moment like that in corporate America that I'm so proud of, and I can't wait to share with you. Was not received well by the company I worked for at the time. But now in hindsight, I realized I wasn't at the right company. I wasn't with the right people. But when something resonates with you and makes sense for you and it's true to your heart, that is that right next step for you. Even if that community around you doesn't respect that. Again, you've got to find your people. And just because people are in your circle does not mean they are in your corner. So I will never forget, it was International Women's Day, 2017, right before I got fired. And I was the chief revenue officer in charge of sales and operations for the entire company all across the country. We had offices in all the major cities. And so I wouldn't always get a chance to be in every marketplace all the time. So I would do crazy things like send a life-size cutout of myself to my marketplaces with funny notes, trying to get their attention and remind them I'm here with you, even if I'm not in the office. And yes, I did that. And yes, it works very well. But then I thought, I'm going to try a different approach. It was International Women's Day. I'd been at the company for almost 14 years at that point. And I thought, these people don't really know me. Some of them do, right? The people that I saw more often in person and had a more honest connection with. But the people that I didn't get to see all the time that were in Las Vegas or New York, they didn't know that real me. They knew the woman that they saw on conference calls or on Zoom meetings or at a national conference, but they didn't really know the challenges that I faced or the struggles that I had. And I started thinking, what if these people think I'm perfect? then I'm not being a real leader, because I am far from perfect. So that International Women's Day, that March of 2017, I decided to lead by example for the first time truly in my career. And I sent out an email to every female employee in my division, in the sales and operations division of the company. And it said something like this. I've been at this company for almost 14 years, yet I'm afraid so many of you don't know the real me. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Heather Monahan. I'm a single mother. I struggle a lot. I struggle because I don't have enough time with my son. I struggle because I want to go to the gym and feel good about myself. I struggle with where I'm investing my money. I'm not great at finances. I struggle with hitting quarterly quotas and leading this company on a day-to-day basis. Here are a couple of things I'm proud of. And I shared what I was proud of at that point in time, which I don't remember now because it seems like a lifetime ago. And a lot has happened in the past 4 years that I'm proud of. So we won't get into that right now. But then I shared a couple of things I was proud of. And then I opened it up to the team and I said, if you're afraid that maybe somebody here doesn't know the real you, we'd love it if you could reintroduce yourself. That email we called lightning in a bottle. And I had no idea what anyone was going to think. Of course, I was a little nervous when I sent it. It was very out of character. And more importantly, it was out of character for the company I worked in at the time, who wanted to pretend things were perfect, who wanted to pretend there were never surprises. That email went crazy, and every single person on that email thread responded with beautiful messages and supportive messages. And then they took the ball and they ran with it. They started a Facebook page. They started a group, a monthly call. They started all of these initiatives around community and connection and real and being authentic and sharing their hardships. And my phone rang 10 minutes later, and it was a young lady in our North Carolina office. And I had never spoken to her on the phone. I had met her once before in person. And she said, Heather, I'm calling in response to your email. You said it was fine to contact you. I said, yeah, of course. How are you doing? What's going on? And she said, I'm miserable. And I said, what do you mean you're miserable? She said, I hate my job and I've secretly been looking for new employment. I said, well, pump the brakes. Tell me what's going wrong. What do you like? What do you not like? What are the problems? Maybe I can help. I wanted her to empty her glass to me. She shared that while she loved the editing work she did, she hated the industry that she was doing it for. She was in charge of editing proposals and pitch decks for a certain industry. Actually, it was the automotive industry. And it didn't appeal to her. It didn't resonate with her. But she felt so fearful to tell the truth to anyone in management, she thought she'd be fired. So instead of raising her hand and asking for help, which is something strong people do, she decided to secretly go search for employment elsewhere, which was not what we wanted. I loved having her in my division. She was talented beyond belief. I did not want to lose her. And thankfully, because of that email, that oops email, right? That email that says, I'm flawed and I know you're flawed too, and I want to hear about it. She felt she could trust me. She called me and I moved her to a different division and she was able to stay at the company. She never really wanted to leave. So the more you show up as that real and authentic version of yourself, the more you will show others it's possible. And I promise you, if you feel like you can't do it where you are at that wrong table. And there are tables out there with people who will be champions for you. Okay, I want to get back to, Daryl started with a quote from my new book, Overcome Your Villains, that talks about stopping these stories that just, they're not true, they're not real. And I want to share a quick one with you. This was a huge epiphany that I had just a couple of years ago. I'll never forget, it was right before the pandemic. I was in Disney with my sister. How many of us had a sibling that was a smart one? Anyone? Oh yeah, I see you. Okay, so my sister had a perfect score on her SATs. My sister skipped grades because she was so smart. She was the smart one. So if she's the smart one, I was called the social one. And I guess that meant I'll be good in sales. So I always held on to that label. No one made me. And maybe like you, you're still hanging on to one of those labels or stories from when you were a kid. Cut to, I get fired. And I put the post up that I told you about. It went viral. It landed me on the Elvis Duran show. Halfway through that interview, Elvis Duran looked at me and said, well, Heather, obviously you're writing a book. but I wasn't. I wasn't writing a book. In fact, I wasn't the smart one in my family. This is exactly what I thought in that moment when he said that to me. I'm not the smart one. If you're not the smart one, how can you write a book? I'm the social one. I'm supposed to lead sales teams and companies, but I've been fired from that role. Now what do I do? And thankfully, in that moment, someone who was light years ahead of me spoke a truth and a conviction and a confidence into me. And just so you know, you have the power to change the trajectory of one person's life, just like Elvis Duran did for me. He spoke that truth into me. I jumped on a plane. I Googled, how do you write a book? But most importantly, I worked through this idea that maybe because my sister was the smart one, I wasn't the smartest one in my family, but maybe I could still write a book. And somehow I got myself to bring that book to life. That book trumped Donald Trump for #1 on the business biography list the first week it hit. And I was scared to death doing it, but I'm so proud I did now. P.S. That book has 3 mistakes in it. True story. Just goes back to my owning that white space of being very flawed and very imperfect. And I'm still really proud of it. Now, I mentioned I was in Disney with my sister, and it was right before the pandemic. So it was after my book had already come out, but I was still holding on to that label that she was a smart one and I was a social one. And anytime we hold on to a limiting story, limiting belief, or a limiting label, we're never going to reach our potential. My sister shared that she had just taken her kids in for IQ testing. Cue the eye roll. I said to her, oh, golf clap. I'm so excited for you and to hear about all of their results. And she said, why do you act like that? And I said, because nobody in their right mind takes their kid for an IQ test for fun on the weekend, other than the smart one. And she said, you mean you don't remember when you took an IQ test with me? I said, no, I certainly don't. And if I did, please don't rub my nose in how poorly I did and how amazing you did. And she said, but that's not it. Yes, I did amazing, Heather, and I scored off the charts, and it was the highest marks they have ever received. But you scored genius level too. I said, what? She said, you really don't remember this. I said, someone has got to dig up these reports and provide them to me because I'm in shock. I can't believe, is this really true? She said, yeah, it's true. And that night I went to the hotel and I couldn't sleep because I started saying to myself, I was never not the smart one. Just because my sister was the smartest one never meant I wasn't smart. And I shouldn't have had to wait to hear about testing results to be able to say, I can drop that label of the social one or the smart one. It doesn't have to be a this or a that. It could be an and it could be whatever you decide it is to be. But I'm sharing that story with you again, just to give you another data point that there were facts out there that I could have pointed to, but really the only person I had to check in with to begin with was me, to say, you can be a social one and you can be a smart one. And just because your sister is brilliant doesn't mean you're not great at it too. And so whatever story you are holding on to, I'm going to challenge you tonight when you are home, when you are off Zoom today, to write down what that limiting story is and boil it down to the most simplistic fact. Had I boiled that story down years ago, I can only imagine what I would be doing right now. I'd be light years ahead of where I am. And thankfully, Elvis Duran spoke that conviction in me to push me through that fear and start living my life blamelessly. Because the minute we drop the self-limiting stories, the self-limiting beliefs, and the labels we've held on to, we can take our unique talents and skills to any lane we want. I took mine from sales leadership in corporate America to being a top 50 keynote speaker in 2022, a best-selling author, a podcast host, and now a board member. Where can you take your unique skills when you start living your life blamelessly? I cannot wait to hear, and I can't wait to hear if anybody has any questions or if I can answer any sales questions, because I love to talk sales if you guys want to get into that.
All right. Woo! What a great conversation.
Right at the very end, this was awesome, Heather. And I was just, there's so much gold in there because our stories almost mirror each other in how we got started down the road of entrepreneurship. But I'm a big Andy
Elvis Duran spoke truth into you too.
Possibly, but I'm a big Andy Stanley fan, and he's doing a series actually right now about removing the excuses that we tell ourselves, and he calls them paper walls. And the paper walls hold all of us back from really seeing great things. And I love your story, Heather. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, thanks for having me and giving me the chance to do it.
Yeah, I think this process of identifying these beliefs that hold us back is so powerful. I'm curious and by the way, everyone that's listening in, it's just been fun. I don't know if you've been able to see the chat stream going, but it's really, really cool. I know there's probably some questions embedded somewhere in there, but if you have a question for Heather, just drop it in the chat stream right there on YouTube. And Heather, I'm curious though, when it comes to identifying the lanes that you're stuck in, I like that analogy, and also identifying these false beliefs that are holding you back. Coach us on how you'd go about doing that.
Yeah, so in my new book, Overcome Your Villains, it's a 3-step process to overcoming any adversity in business and life. It's called BACK, which starts with beliefs, action, and knowledge. And that first step, beliefs, is really all around this idea, Daryl, around, okay, if I'm holding a belief, I need to start questioning what that belief means for me. So, for example, it could be that business is slow right now, and suddenly I'm questioning, is business going to get better? What can I do? Am I doing everything that I can? Am I going to fail this year too? Is this going to be another challenging year? That's when we have to pump the brakes and say, okay, what is this belief? Number one, is business bad? Well, let's specifically boil it down to fact, and let's start looking at trends. Let's start looking at patterns. Let's start looking at data that can actually point to what factual basis there is here. Typically, what we're going to find is there's very little factual basis, and we're just forecasting our fears. We're living in the present, we're living in the past, and we're not living in that moment. So really boiling that belief down to whatever simple shred of fact we can find, but typically you're going to find there's no fact to it at all.
Yeah, I think it's like just like interrogating that thing, right? Holding it up, shining the bright light in its face and going, okay, let's see what's really true here. So many false beliefs have held me back over the years, and it feels so freeing every time I identify one. And I have a sense, by the way, if you haven't gone to Amazon, you're online right now. Go get a copy. Overcome Your Villains. Already, you're coaching us in this book through that process of identifying the beliefs that are holding us back. And you talked about, my favorite part in that chapter was flipping the script. And when you get the book, and I don't know if you want to give it away, but you got to get this book, but like just turn the whole script upside down and read it back and say the exact opposite, and it works. So it's like these untrue beliefs, we can flip them on their head because they're lies, and usually the opposite of lies is a truth. It's really, really powerful.
Well, one piece of advice that I want to share with people, and I talked about it on my podcast this week because it's been driving me crazy. And anytime I'm getting hit with the same messages from people a lot, it tells me that I need to share. So, other than doing self-work is super important for sales and showing up as that real version of yourself. But there's also some strategies in this day and age that should be implemented to help you succeed. And so I'll give you a specific example. Leading with value first and how you can add value to people will always be the number one way to succeed in sales, in my opinion, and in my experience. And so I get a lot of DMs every day from people asking for things, right? Hey, Heather, how did you self-publish? Hey, Heather, can you introduce me to Gary Vee? Hey, Heather, how do I get promoted? Just random questions. Again, I'm not a nonprofit, right? So for me to stop and say, oh, let me give out free advice all day long, that doesn't really mathematically work to me paying my mortgage. So it's funny because some people will get frustrated. Oh, you don't answer these questions. However, let me give you an example. I'll have someone reach out to me on social media and say, hey, Heather, I just read your book, Overcome Your Villains. I wanted to include a screenshot to the review I left you on Amazon and say, thank you so much for writing this book. It meant a lot to me and my career advancement. To which I reply immediately, oh my gosh, thank you so much for leaving me a review. That's super helpful. Right. And I'm so glad to hear the book helped. He then goes on to say, hey, if you wouldn't mind, would you mind connecting me to the company you use to self-publish? I'm looking to write a book too. And guess what? I take the 3 minutes out of my day and I go to email, I copy his email, I bring it over and I make the introduction. So the point is that the more we show up and lead with value and think about how can we add value to others, the faster they're going to come back to us and say, you know what, let me see if I can help you too.
Oh, this is so good. And Heather, If you could coach the listeners and the people that are tuning into this, especially around authenticity, because I know there's a lot of people that struggle with it. They struggle with how to find their authentic self. What's all of this mean? Hang out on social media for any amount of time during a day, and you can find definitions of authenticity, what people think authenticity is all about. But just spend a few minutes, if you will, and just coach us through, how could somebody find their authentic self, and what's that journey look like?
For me, it started with journaling. Here's what happened to me. As I mentioned, I was in an environment where perfection was the goal, right? You were supposed to show up as not flawed and perfect and no surprises and just do your job, right? And fly under the radar and look a certain way. If you were outside of that, you didn't get promoted, or, so in my mind, I started saying, oh, this is life, right? Like, this is the way I'm being told to be this way, and I'm going to believe this because I'm staying here. This is my reality. Here's what I've learned. You're being fed misinformation from people. Most of these people, they don't even know they're doing it, right? They think they're living their best life. So I'm being fed misinformation from people who were in leadership positions who I wanted to impress. I start changing myself. I lost my voice. I was not able to find my authentic self, right? Like I said, even when I first started recruiting online, I showed up as a more perfect version of me with fake glasses on and, dressing a certain way. So for me, journaling was that first time I was able to start saying, becoming intentional. Number one is intent, right? I have the intent. I put it out there to the universe. I write it down. I'm going to become my authentic self this year. I've got a goal, right? I'm going to recruit someone who I think is authentic and say, can you help me on this journey? Can you hold me accountable? Can you call me out when you see me doing my BS perfection thing, right? We need people with strong voices in our life that are looking out for us to help us. That's helpful. But then I started journaling. And when I was alone by myself with my journal, I didn't have to impress anybody. I didn't have to be fearful of being judged, right? I just could write my truth. And as I wrote my truth, slowly I started turning up that internal voice. Slowly I started reconnecting with who I really am. And then I started spending more time doing things I love, like working out, or I started acknowledging and receiving compliments. When we start receiving compliments, that's a really powerful way to build confidence within ourselves. And so I started owning some of these small truths. And as I acknowledged them, I was intentional. I was holding myself accountable. I did crazy things like the post where I said, I've just been fired. And what's important to know is I knew the haters were going to come. I knew people would come for me for that. But I decided it was more important for me to show up as that real, true version of me than it was to keep other people who I don't even know happy.
Oh, wow. I love it. And I think the journaling has been extremely helpful. I mean, inside the Selling from the Heart Insiders group, we're always talking about getting alone and doing that inside work. I think that is so, so critical. There's a question here from Chris, and I think this one
I've been staring at it as I've been thinking about you, Daryl.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as an introvert, and myself, as somebody who loves people but finds energy in those quiet moments with a journal, this is an interesting question. Chris asks, is being an introvert a paper wall? Interesting question there, Chris. What do y'all think?
Larry, you're the paper wall guy.
Yeah, you're the paper.
But I just brought it up, but I'm not. Daryl's the introvert. I'm an extrovert. I mean, it's so funny how Daryl and I are complete opposites on this, because I'm the social part of this, but right, I have so many paper walls that keep me back, and I will throw my hands up, Heather, on this one. It's all these excuses that prevent myself from truly being better than I know I'm capable of. And it's just, that's why I love this message and what you're sharing, because I will share, I am nowhere near being perfect, never will be. I struggle with all the things that you just shared, the self-limiting beliefs, the lack of confidence in some situations and all that. These are paper walls. And it's so funny when I watched Andy Stanley's message this weekend, he's just walking over, just poking holes in these things and goes, these things are just paper walls, but you treat them as brick walls that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. And I think what happens in sales is we look at the society, and I'm just going to go there and call it the bros club. And we just look at how everyone acts and we go, we got to fit into that, as opposed to leading by example and saying, you know what, this is who I am, like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. The introvert is totally a paper wall. To me, the introvert is like getting fired, right? You can say, oh, I'm damaged goods now, I've been fired. Or you can reframe it and say, in good company. Oprah's been fired, you know, Steve Jobs fired, Heather Monahan fired. Come on with me. Like, this is a great place to be. You can flip the script on any of these things. Go find out, go Google who the most successful introverts are. I'm sure there's some really impressive ones, and that's just not an excuse you need to carry on with you.
Yeah, I think a lot of that. I mean, going back to this authenticity, when I started in sales, you know, you walk in, you're like, this is how you dress, this is what you say, this is, you know, and so it was an intentional, like it was boot camp. Literally, they called it that, right? I went down to sales boot camp and they said, this is how you show up casual Friday. You can wear a blue shirt with your suit instead of a white one. I mean, it literally true story. And so you get in that, you start your career as a young, impressionable sales professional, as I did. And I think that I put this firewall up between my personal life and my business life. And this is one I've struggled with a lot. And Larry's really encouraged me to not do that, like to be myself everywhere I go. And as I've done that over the last couple of years, and I'm going to say that I still struggle with that. But as I bring more of my authentic self to the marketplace, good things are happening. And that mindset of sales professionals, I think it starts young. We got to break out of that mold of, you know, they were making us into corporate robots, and what a horrible way to live.
Yeah, thank goodness we're not in that situation any longer. Oh my gosh, I don't recommend that for anybody. You do you and be you. That's the way that you'll be the most powerful, most confident version of yourself.
Yeah, excited. You know, there's two words that are near and dear to me, Heather. It's connect and relate. Mm-hmm. And the only way that you'll be able to truly connect to somebody and truly relate to somebody, especially in sales where trust and credibility is so low, you really got to get in tune with who you are and bring the goods. The only way you're going to bring the goods is bring the best version of yourself forward, because that's how you're going to immediately connect to somebody. That's how you're immediately going to relate to somebody. It's about bringing your humanness to the forefront first. And I remember my very first mentor told me this. So my first business coach at 40 years old said, here's the key to success in sales. Stop being a salesperson. Mm-hmm. It was just little simple things like that. And I go, interesting. Just be you.
I love it. Well, a last question here from Skip, and Skip says exactly what I was going to ask. Like, what can you leave us with today? Like, if you say one more thing to this amazing group of sales professionals and leaders that really are moving in the direction of authenticity, what would you say? And you know, how would you encourage us today as we wrap this up, Heather?
Fire the villains in your life, whether it be in your social circle, in a relationship, at work, wherever that villain is. And every single person here has at least one villain. I know you do. You know who that person is. You've just been ignoring it or, hoping it doesn't impact you. Here's the thing. When someone's judging us, when someone's telling us to be a different way than we are, it's like Chinese water torture. It's sucking energy and thoughts out of your mind where you could have time to be creative and a visionary and work on things that you want to be doing. You're being consumed, whether you realize it or not. It is sucking the life out of you. So don't allow another day to go by. Fire those villains around you. Create those boundaries to protect yourself and start surrounding yourself with people who are your champions and your cheerleader. Once you do that, you have the ability to overcome the biggest villain you're ever going to face in your life. And that's the one that lies between your own two ears.
Oh, wow. That is so good. Hey, Heather, before you go, by the way, I wanted to say thank you, but I wanted to give a shout out to Scott McGregor, because I love Scott McGregor so much. And if it wasn't for Scott McGregor, Heather, you and I don't meet because we met at the first Standing O.
Wait, he's calling me this whole time. He keeps calling me. That's so funny that you just brought him up. I'm going to call him back as soon as we hang up.
Yeah, as soon as
fun. Say hi to Scott.
Tell him I said hello.
Yeah,
I
awesome.
will.
Heather, what a treat. Thank you so much for investing in us today. You are a true inspiration.
Oh, you guys are the best. Thanks so much for having
Hey,
me
thanks,
anytime.
Heather.
And thank you to everyone that's here. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, hey, if you haven't already, go grab a copy of this book, but I'm going to ask you to kick it up a notch. Don't just grab a copy of this book, read it and leave a review, because what Heather is putting out here to the world is so critical. This is like a playbook for authenticity. Overcome your villains. And if you're lacking in confidence, just go ahead and put both in your cart. The Confidence Creator is a phenomenal book as well. And I think on your journey of authenticity, I'm just so honored that Heather shared time to coach us today. This has been incredibly powerful, Larry.
No, it has been. And this just proves the point why when we say that inner work is the hardest work, getting to the core of things does matter, everybody. It really does. And, I'm just going to go there, but in a world full of empty suits, we have to bring our heart to the forefront. And I always like saying this, Daryl, and I think this really sums it up, is people out there, right? People out in your marketplace, your clients and your future clients, they'd rather connect and do business with a sales professional who brings their heart to the forefront, as opposed to one who's an empty suit. And the only way that's going to happen is you got to stand up, commit, and say, I'm willing to do the inner work and really get to know who I am.
Absolutely. And if you want to take that journey with some like-hearted sales professionals, that's exactly what we're doing in the Trust Building Intensive. In the Selling from the Heart Academy, we firmly believe that more trust equals more sales, but it means so much more than more sales. It means more fulfillment. It means more engagement. It means more joy. It's such a beautiful thing. And in the Trust Building Intensive, with a cohort of your peers, we're actually going through and we're applying trust building skills, the things we're talking about here in the challenge this week: authentic relationship, meaningful value, inspirational experience, all multiplied by disciplined habits. We're actually implementing those things in our lives together in all phases of the sales process. And Larry, the first cohort, it's been a blast going through it. I see some folks in the chat. There's Bill. Bill says, come and join us. Bill's in the cohort, and it's been such a great time with the intensive. We'll be kicking another one off in early February. So if you want to take a deep dive into these topics, we'll have more information coming out about that, specific details of when that starts, but put that on your radar, the Trust Building Intensive. And Larry, we've got an incredible day tomorrow. We've got none other. Let's put it up. I can't wait for everyone to meet Carson Heddy. Wow, Carson Heddy is coming to the challenge tomorrow. It's going to be incredible.
I've enjoyed getting to know Carson over time, and I will tell you this: is you build the coolest relationships in the intersection between the physical and the digital world. Carson, here's what's interesting: Carson and I have never physically met each other, but we've built a great friendship. And when it comes to authenticity, he's been on the podcast, B, he's been in the Selling from the Heart Insiders group, and he's written several books. He has his own podcast, and yet he's a sales leader inside Microsoft. So tomorrow he's going to share what it means to bring authenticity to the forefront as a sales leader. This is going to be absolutely a fantastic day tomorrow, Daryl.
Yeah, you're not going to want to miss Carson. If you're not in the LinkedIn group, there's a private LinkedIn group for all the challenge participants. I'm going to put that in the chat right now. Come join us. It's a private group. We'll make sure you get approved, and you can meet some like-hearted peers. But here's what we want to challenge you to do. What'd you learn from Heather today? Well, what are you going to apply in your life based on this conversation today? Because this isn't just about hanging out and learning some stuff. This is about taking action. And I know there were so many actionable items around what Heather talked about today. So share that in the challenge group. Drop a comment, drop a video. Let's engage together and let's encourage each other to drive towards authenticity in sales. So Larry, I'm so excited. This challenge is rocking and rolling. We're off to a great start. Don't miss tomorrow. You're really, really going to enjoy getting to know Carson and Larry. It's so much fun.
No, this is great. I just want to take what you just said. And by the way, again, a special shout out to Cindy Ashton for the voiceover. She's the voice behind this year's Selling from the Heart Authentic Sales Challenge. But I want to take what Daryl said. about posting something in the challenge group. Post something about what authenticity means to you, right? Share a vulnerable moment, but I want to layer something on top of this. I double dog dare you to share that out on LinkedIn, out in your community. It's great, and we applaud you for sharing it in our community. It's a safe environment. Throw it out there on LinkedIn, because you know what? Sometimes it's not a safe environment, but I will tell you this: if you want to build a community and you want to get people to get to know you, throw some things out there.
That's right.
Get vulnerable, lean into it. It's not a sign of weakness, folks. I promise you it works.
That's good. I think I'll be talking about some more vulnerable moments. If you've been following me on LinkedIn as I've been training for this trek coming up, I think we'll talk about that tomorrow. But hey, we're going to have a great time tomorrow. And thank you so much, everybody, for encouraging us, encouraging each other. And let's keep moving towards authenticity as we sell from the heart.
Thank you for joining us today for the 2022 Authentic Selling Challenge. Authenticity requires action. You're challenged to take what you have learned today and put it into action right away. If you've enjoyed the ideas and inspiration you've received today, please take a moment to share this challenge with your friends and clients. Let's all take action. We'll see you again tomorrow.